Welcome to Easy Peasy Books, From Author to Authority, the lively and engaging podcast for business professionals who've always believed they have a book in them. I'm your host, Gillian Whitney. Join me as I chat with authors and industry experts from all around the world to explore simple strategies to write, publish, and leverage your business book. Whether you're an entrepreneur, executive, or an employee, this podcast is for you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Easy Peasy Books podcast. So today I have a special guest in the house today, and we have just met Frank Agin, and he is his peeps call him a master connector of all connectors. So wow, what a fabulous title that is. So Frank, I met Frank on LinkedIn through a mutual friend, Tina Jarvett. And again, it's all talking about referrals and connections and networking and how it all goes together. And this is something I need to learn about. And so Frank, before we get stuck in, can you please tell people who you are and what you do? And then we'll start chatting.
Yeah. Again, Frank Agin. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I'm not from here. I moved here 40 years ago to go to law school. I have a law degree. I have an MBA from Ohio State. I started my career in public accounting. I was a tax consultant. Great job, Gillian. Great job, great pay, great everything if you like to do taxes. And I determined early on that it was not something I wanted to do forever. I have colleagues, friends that that's been their world, and it wasn't mine. But after 6.5 years, I decided to leave and go into private practice. And I tell people that a funny thing happened to me when I went into the private practice of law. And the funny thing was that nothing happened. I had no idea how to get clients. And it's the $1 million question for every entrepreneur. So I struggled for a while. This was 95. There's no LinkedIn, there's no real internet, there's no real email. I don't even think I had a cell phone. I mean, that's just that was the dark ages. You had to literally get up and go to the TV to change the channel. It was a tough time. I don't know how we survived. But somebody suggested, just through, a little bit of networking, talking to people, suggested I look into a tips club or a leads group. People are familiar with BNI, or there's organizations out there. And I really had no idea what they were talking about, but I was quasi-desperate, didn't want to go begging for my job back. So I was connected with an organization. It was based out of Pittsburgh that brought together entrepreneurs, sales reps, professionals into a weekly meeting, in-person meeting, where we learned about each other and we exchanged referrals. We developed relationships. We really wanted to help each other. And that really worked well for me. I really doubled down on that experience. Had a lot of great things, but to short, this is a book about publishing. This isn't a book about telling my whole story, because I could write a whole book on it. Maybe one day I will. But I had an opportunity to buy the organization in the early 2000s, and I did. And I decided I was going to stop practicing law. The world has enough attorneys, but this is very unique. This is a very unique position. So I spend my days helping entrepreneurs, sales reps, professionals get more business through networking, get more referrals. It's a structured program that we have. We have, I don't know, dozens and dozens of groups, hundreds and hundreds of members that subscribe to our program, get involved in our system, and really build relationships and learn how to cultivate referrals out of those relationships. But early on in that experience, I wanted to be more than just kind of the social chair for the organization, just bringing people together. I was learning lots about networking, and I wanted to learn lots about it, and I wanted to be kind of a thought leader with respect to it. And that's what kind of got me starting writing. I'd actually written a novel in the mid 80s. Just one summer when I was in law school, I had a really weird schedule and was home all day, and just all my friends are at work and I'm at home, and at night I'm working. And so I wrote a novel and never really did anything with it until until the early 2000s when I discovered digital printing. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's kind of my story,
I love it. I love it. And I did my homework before we met today, and I saw on Amazon you are quite a prolific author. There was several books there, and I feel free to mention any of them that you would recommend that, you know, through our conversation with, hey, if you want to learn more, go and check out my book.
Yeah.
So please feel free to drop a go buy this on Amazon
Yeah,
all you
sure.
want. So, okay, so let's define our terms because we talk about networking and, you and I are both love LinkedIn. That's, our jam. We love LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And the thing is that people think, well, okay, that's networking. I go on LinkedIn and I build a network, hopefully you want to get beyond the 500. And then, I think I'm up to like 12,000, 13,000,
Yeah.
whatever. But I don't know if it's productive. And I saw that on your profile, you talk about networking needs to be productive. So, can you sort of define that and even to referrals? Because it's like I think of referrals and I'm like, okay, is that me asking you to refer me? Is this me introducing people to other, or is it me paying people that it's like, okay, if you send me a client, I'll give you a finder fee. Help me define all these terms.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot to it, and it's I deal with it every day, and so sometimes and we were kind of talking about this before we hit record. You assume things. You assume people have knowledge that you have. Um, I guess with respect to the whole notion of LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a blessing and LinkedIn is a curse, and it's a blessing because it'll back in the day, back in the dark ages, the '90s. Um, Someone might say, "Hey, Frank, you need to meet Gillian," and I'd be like, "Okay," and I had really no way of finding anything out about you. Now, if somebody has a LinkedIn profile or just anywhere on the internet, you can find out tons about people. Um, and it really is helpful because I can get on calls with people and, "Hey, I see you went to such and such school. Are you from Michigan? Are you from Nevada?" And you can really kind of have meaning to the conversation. And so LinkedIn is a blessing from that respect, but it's a curse because people feel like they just get on LinkedIn and that's all they need to do.
Mm.
One of the early books that I wrote, and it's not for sale anymore. I wrote it with this guy by the name of Lewis Howes. He's a big influencer. He's got a top 100 podcast called School of Greatness. He's done very well for himself. Very proud to know him. But he and I wrote a book on LinkedIn, and he taught me a lot about LinkedIn. I wasn't on LinkedIn. He got me on there. He coached me how to do it. And the book was called Linked Working. And really the reason we don't sell it anymore is because it's largely dated now. There are things that don't happen there are things that aren't linked anymore. And so we don't want to have something out there like that. But the gist of the book, Gillian, was this. You behave on social media the same way you behave in the real world. In the real world, it's not just a matter of having somebody's business card. You need to develop relationships. People need to know you. They need to like you. They need to trust you. And so for those listening, just being on LinkedIn is not enough. You need to find ways to have conversations with people. Just even, hey, I've had somebody reach out to me today. I see we both have these things in common. Would you be open just having a get acquainted conversation? Implied in that is I'm not pitching you. You're not pitching me. We're just going to talk and see how we can help one another. And I don't know where it's going to go. A lot of times those end up with me just making an introduction to somebody else, and I'm not the person to talk to, but you should be talking to Casey. She's down in Dallas, Texas, and she'd be a great person for you. And that's really what networking is. It's, should people be paying for referrals? There are people out there who do. I'm not a big fan of that, Gillian. I mean, if I can help you, I want to help you. I don't, I think it taints it if I take money. I never want somebody, I've never done it. I never want to get paid because it's just, I want to refer people because I think they're the right person.
Mm.
Not because I'm getting $500 or $100 or, a cup of coffee, because, hey, I really think this is best for you.
Mm.
And so, it is, my definition of networking is this: it's two or more people working towards their mutual benefit.
Hmm.
I may never do business with you. You may never do business with me. That's okay. But if I run across somebody, and I talk to people all the time who are, you should have a book. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about it. It's really complicated. Yeah, I've done it. It is complicated. I don't have time to really sit and talk with you about it, but I know somebody who makes it easy peasy, right?
Exactly.
And you've, you know, the mystery, well, it's not really a mystery, but there are a lot of moving parts to it. And if you haven't done it, it can be scary. And a lot of people don't want to take that kind of time, you know? And so that's, that's the whole the notion of networking. Uh, and interrupt me at any point, but I tell people I don't like coconut, and this leads back into networking. I have a gag reflex for coconut. So it goes back to my childhood. I don't like coconut, but if you offer me an Almond Joy bar, which is like all coconut, I will take it. Why? I'm not eating it, but there are people in my life who love coconut. My wife loves
Mhm.
coconut. So I'm
Mhm.
doing that. I'm getting that candy bar for her and trusting that her or somebody else in my world will get the candy I like and give it to me. And it's the same thing with respect to opportunities. When I stumble across opportunities, it's like, I'm going to gather that up, you know? No, I'm not looking for a cheap vacation to the Bahamas, but I know somebody who is, right?
Yep. Yep.
And that's really the essence of networking, is just finding ways we can help one another. We're all, we all come across all sorts of opportunities every day that don't necessarily suit us, but could really benefit somebody else. And if you build the right people in your life and educate them on what you're looking for and learn what they're looking for, that's how we help one another. That's building a network. And it's a whole lot more simple um, than people believe. It really is.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, because
Yep.
maybe I've been doing this wrong. So I think on LinkedIn in particular, you get a little nervous when people, you know, want to connect with you, and then you feel like immediately they're just deluging you with things, their videos and this
Yeah.
and that. You're just like, or they ask you stupid questions that, like, if you had read my profile, you'd know not to. I had
Yeah.
somebody the other day that said their first thing was, "Have you ever considered writing a book?"
I get
And I
those
was
too.
like, "I'm a book coach and I've written 6 books." That's a really dumb way to start
Yeah.
any kind of networking with me. But also too, a lot of people on the first kind of thing, they wanna, let's have a Zoom call. And it's like, I don't want to invest that time from the get-go. Maybe if we have, like, a little bit of back and forth, I start to see, okay, like, I don't trust you yet. Am I doing that wrong? Should I just be meeting with everybody? Is there a good way for me to say, this person, yes? Like, am I expecting too much to have a little bit of the back and forth before I'm willing to, spend 30 minutes and go have a Zoom call with you?
Well, I think my simple answer to that is no, I don't think you're going about it wrong. Um, we all, everybody has 24 hours in a day, but everybody has a different value to their time. When I get an email, I respond to my emails like right away, because that's just how I operate. I have other people, and I know when I email them, it might be 3 days till I hear from them, because that's just their style, right? So I use that as an example of, we all have our styles. Um, you know, every time, there's a value to time. Attorneys actually charge for it. There's a value to my time. I don't charge for it. So I kind of look at it a little differently. But yes, there are a lot of people out there anymore who are reaching out about stupid things. And really, that's AI doing that. Those are
Mm.
AI bots. And so I read those things and I don't even connect. I don't even engage. I used to, yeah, that's a stupid question, kind of a thing. If you looked at my profile, you'd see I'm an author. I've got a podcast. I do this. I sell franchises. Why would I buy a I just don't even engage anymore, because it's AI and it's a waste of time. And they're not even going to see the pithy comment you come back at them with. Um, but I don't think there's anything wrong with going back at somebody and saying, I'd really be, I certainly could be interested. This is your style. I could be interested in having a Zoom call, but could we just maybe do a little exchange of information? Give me a little background. I'm not expecting anything, but it would just be nice if we just got acquainted. Let's have some coffee before we go on our first date, kind of a thing.
That's
Um,
brilliant.
and I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. My style is, especially here in Columbus, Ohio, somebody will reach out and say, "Hey, I'd love to have a cup of coffee with you." And I tell people, I don't mean to be mean, but I don't do coffee. I mean, I don't drink coffee, but yeah, I know I can drink something else. I get that. But I don't do coffee. What I'm saying is that I don't take the time to race out of the office to meet with somebody to have coffee. Generally speaking, obviously, if it's somebody notable, then sure, right? I don't even want to throw a name out anymore. Used to be able to name the president, and they would, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Now it's
Right.
now it doesn't matter. But half the people hate the president, no matter what. But at any rate, um, but generally speaking, when for somebody for the first time, what I'll say is, I don't do coffee. It's 90 minutes by the time I leave. You know,
Mm.
if you're in a big, Columbus isn't even that big. If you're in a city like Dallas or Houston or New York City, I mean, it's just that's an investment of time.
Yep.
So what I always suggest, even if they're a block away, let's do a Zoom call,
Mm.
because in 15, 20 minutes, we can learn a lot about each other and see if meeting really makes sense. And I tell them, I said, what I find a lot of times is that, well, we'll certainly run into one another. I'm happy to help out. Um, I'm, I might just be able to just refer you to somebody else.
Mm.
The person you need to be talking to is Gillian. I'm going to connect you right now, and it's done. And then I'm going to go on to my next call. So I don't think you're doing it wrong. Maybe what you need to do is you need to be, and maybe your mom said good girls don't call boys, kind of a thing, but you might be the one reaching out to people and saying, hey, just hey, this is me. It's not AI. Would just like to have a get acquainted call. I see you do these sorts of things, and we kind of run in the same circles, and I want to better understand what you're about and share what I'm about. And some people, their style might say, no, I have no interest in that. Great.
Mm.
You
Mm.
know?
No, I think that's good, and to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever done that. I don't think I've ever done any kind of outreach. I'd maybe asked one person to do an introduction for me just because I wanted to connect with somebody who required an email address on LinkedIn
Yeah.
in order to connect. And I said, "Can you make the introduction so that I could actually, make that connection with that person?" And it ended up becoming a very good friend. So I'm glad I did that. I am a self-disclosed introvert, and introverts usually kind of wait for other people. But I think I'm hearing your suggestion that it's like maybe you need to hop in the driver's seat. If
Yeah.
you don't really like where you're going in the passenger seat, maybe sometimes then the onus is on you. And I know, for instance, with me, I really believe it takes a village to write a book. And so you've got editors and you've got, cover designers and all these sort of things. And I know I would like to build a bigger network, not just for me, but for my clients, so that when my clients come to me and say, who could I go to
Yeah.
get a new cover, that it's like I'm not just sending them to like, okay, there's these 3 companies. It's like I might say, actually, Wendy over in the UK, she does these fabulous ones and she's, self-employed, has her own business. So I'd like to be able to do more of that. But now I'm thinking, I think I have to kind of, sort of step it up and figure out who do I want in my network and be the initiator and maybe even look at other people in my network and say, who can you introduce me to that are good cover designers you'd like, and then kind of do it like that. So I'm thinking now I'm maybe I need to be a little bit more active.
Well, I think so. I think you do. I think everybody does. When I first started practicing law, and again, there's no LinkedIn, there's no email, there's no nothing. Um, and I was really clueless as to who was out there. I started just calling banks. and just said, hey, I'm a new attorney, new to private practice, and I'm going to be building a business practice. I'm going to have a lot of business clients, and I know they're going to have banking needs. I just don't understand what the differences are between the banks. Would you be willing to spend 15 minutes with me? I'll come in and you can just tell me about your bank.
Mm.
Nobody declined that, right? And so I could see you, I just wrote a note down here, reaching out to business podcasters and saying, hey, you know what? I have authors that I work with, and they probably should be on podcasts. I just want to understand what's out there and what you're looking for, what could help you. And in turn, they're talking to people who probably should have a book, you know. I have a podcast. I talk to people and I'm thinking about it. It's like, well, the largest population in the United States, the two largest populations in the United States are people thinking about going to law school and thinking about writing a book, right? Maybe not so anymore, but that's what it was at one point. But it's like, it's not a, it's not a, I don't even know where to start to write a book, and so they're revealing those things to podcasters. Well, here's somebody you should talk to. So
I love this. And it's funny, you're kind of tapping into this is probably going to show my age, but you're talking to somebody who, sort of before social media, before Google and all that. And I remember when I was, kind of looking for my first job out of university, out of college, everybody said you should do what was called informational interviews. It's like if you want to get a job, you have to get out there and network and talk with people. And I remember reading a book and taking classes that talked about if you want to work at a company, you go and you ask somebody, could you meet me for a cup of coffee? I'll pay for the coffee. I just want to know a little bit about your company. You're not pitching yourself.
yeah,
You're going and you're learning and you're just looking at them that maybe they could be a connector and say, oh, you're looking for a job as a tech writer. I know a company. And so you're not pitching. You were just doing what you said. You go to the podcast host and you say, who are you looking for? How can I help you? As opposed to, hey, I want to be on your show. That's
yeah,
a whole different thing. So it's reminding me of the informational interviews that we used to use
yeah.
probably 20, 30 years ago.
Well, we're all dialed into. We're all looking for value out there. We're all looking for people who will care for us. Nobody wants to be sold, and I don't. And I don't want to behave like that. And so I always tell people ask yourself who's running in the circles you're running in selling something different. As an attorney, it was bankers, it was CPAs, it was payroll people, um, you know, commercial insurance agents, people who are out there and, business brokers. And those are the types of people that you know, I needed to help them though, right? To be on their rate, I needed to have value. So when the phone rang and, hey, it's Frank, oh, I need to have this call because generally speaking, when he's calling, something good is coming from it. And, kind of build a stable of those sorts of people. And, I'm not even, suggesting to you or anyone that you make that your whole day. But if you say, this week, I'm just going to reach out to 5 people, just reach out knowing that probably 3 of those 5 are just not even going to respond. And one's going to say no. And one's going to say yes. And so every week you're having that one conversation and another conversation, and it just starts to add up over time. And then pretty soon what starts happening is, those people become comfortable with you and, they're right away, they're saying, hey, here's somebody else. Here's somebody else who thinks like us.
Mm.
Um, and then that just starts to grow and grow and grow. And it gets easier in time. I'm an introvert too, right? 5:00, I go home, I put on sweats, I sit on the couch. It's me, my wife, and the dog, right? Kids are grown. Uh, and I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. And so yeah.
And you know what? 5 is a doable number. Like, you
Yeah.
just kinda think about it and you just say, "Okay, I got 5 days in the week. How about I approach one person a day? That's my 5 for the week." And I think that having that expectation that like all 5 aren't gonna say yes, and I
Yeah.
and all 5 probably won't say no either, and if they don't, so what? It's like next
Yeah.
week, start again, and I love that it's a numbers game, so
Yeah.
it's just like you put your effort out there, and it might take a while, and analyze how you're if everybody keeps saying no and you're doing it consistently, maybe you got to go back and relook at how you're doing it.
Yeah.
But I think that's a doable goal. So let me ask you something, Frank. How do you track all these people? Like, like most of us, I know if you had like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you got your sort of your built-in
Yeah.
database, but most of us don't have that.
Right.
So, how do you suggest somebody who's just starting out, someone like me, how do I track all of these so that it's like, oh gosh, now I remember who was the writer and who was the editor and the book designer and all these, the podcast host, whatever.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about 5 people, it's the numbers aren't huge. And when I worked in public accounting, again, this is back in the '90s. This was a different time, and a friend of mine who worked there, he did well, but he wasn't going to make it in the firm. And the bosses called him in, and they said, listen, Jeff, that was his name. There's a million Jeffs in the world. So I'm not ratting him out, but he was very inspirational. Hey, Jeff, you're not going to make it here, but we're going to give you 4 months or 3 months just to come on in the office. You're going to get paid. Your insurance is going to continue, but you can use our stuff, take calls. Not everyone had computers at home. So that was a big deal, right? A nice gesture for Jeff. And Jeff took it to heart, and Jeff came in and he just started making calls, informational interviews. Hey, I'm going to be I'm looking for something else. Talk to his clients, talk to whoever. And he just literally had a three ring notebook with pages in it. And he would write, Gillian Whitney, and we had a conversation on such and such day. And then he would always ask people for, is there 1 or 2 people you could introduce me to?
Mm.
You know, I'm not going to pitch them. I just want to have a conversation. I'm just trying to find that next closest person. And when he talked to that person, he would just write on that page, John Smith, and met John through Gillian. So he could really look through this whole thing. And within 3 months, he had 3 job offers. He was doing better leaving the firm than staying at the firm. It was a beautiful thing, right? And gave us all hope because you know what? If you lose this job, there are people out there who want this skill set. So, but my point in saying that is that we get caught up in this whole thing that, I've got to have this electronic thing and I've got to pay this and I got to pay that. You don't. You don't. You know, we networked before we had LinkedIn. We networked before we had a phone. It just makes it easier. Technology, we get caught up in technology. I'm a fan of having a spreadsheet, or I'll use my Outlook database and I'll put notes in there. And I used to have more comprehensive notes. And then I realized, well, a lot of these people are just kind of falling out of my life. So I don't even create a record until I'm, like you're in my system now, because I knew we were going to be talking and I don't know
Right.
where this is going to go, but you're in my system. And but if somebody's just, hey, you need to meet Bob, okay, until I talk to Bob, it's not even worth the effort to put anything in my system. So
That
that's
makes
just,
sense.
yeah, you kind of have to get a feel for it. Um, and put key things that are in there. Bob really likes soccer, okay, so you kind of know, he's a big Buffalo Sabres fan, okay, that gives me something I can go back and respond to them on. There's only so many people we can know, so I don't know that it makes sense to, have tons of information about just all sorts of random people. And Gillian, people fall in and out of our lives, right? I've got a good buddy who I was in his wedding and he was in mine, and we haven't talked in years. He moved to a different part of the state. It's just our lives have kind of separated. We would reconnect in a heartbeat and have a good time, but it's just our worlds aren't orbiting one another right now. So, I don't keep a lot of notes on him, or, it's just, he's somebody I know, but he's not really on my network right now. So you have to kind of feel through and not really put too much pressure on yourself. I keep track of when people's birthdays are, people I know, and just said friend today, just send them a note. Hey, happy birthday. So yeah.
I love that idea of asking somebody at the end of a conversation, "Do you know 3 other people that I should be
Yeah.
talking with?" Because I know I was once on a podcast, and at the end of the podcast, the host actually asked me, "Who would you recommend to be on my show?" And he did that with everybody, and
Yeah.
he had such a huge now he had a huge network or a huge pool to pull from, and it was like and you actually like, I felt good. I felt good recommending, and I was just like, "Wow, only 3?" Like, I know so many people I
Yeah.
would recommend,
Yeah.
but I think that's the thing, is that we assume that you're gonna not like me asking, where in reality, I'm actually proud to
Yeah.
recommend. So,
Yeah.
maybe that's a mindset issue too, to the whole networking game.
Well, I mean, we as humans are hardwired to help each other. We are. I mean, there's science behind this, and I won't get into all of that. But we are hardwired to help one another. We're hardwired to look for people helping. We're hardwired for opportunities to help. Now, that doesn't mean I'm begging somebody to call me and ask for a job or a handout. That's kind of annoying to me. But we're people are looking for ways to help, and you reaching out to somebody and saying, "Hey, is there a particular book you would recommend?"
Mhm.
That I read. I'm trying to write this kind of a book. What would you recommend me looking at to kind of get a sense as to what I should be, you know? Yeah. I would love to help. You feel good about that. And what I find is those little things of help are really, I'll call them a gateway drug, right? It's kind of like, that was, all of a sudden they're thinking about you and bigger things. Yeah, I recommended that book, but here's this other thing too. And yeah, but we're
That's
hardwired
good.
to do those things.
So speaking about book recommendations, is out of all the books that you've written, if somebody wanted to learn more about networking referrals, which of your books would you recommend people checking out?
Um, well, I thank you for asking. And I think I've written 21 books. I don't know. I lose track. Yeah, but there's I have a whole series. I have a podcast, a regular podcast. It's 900 episodes now. And, but I did a 1-minute podcast for 3 years, every day. 1 minute.
Wow.
I wrote everything out, 150 word essays, 150, 170 words. And so when I decided to stop that 4 or 5 years ago, I had all these little essays. What am I going to do with these? So I've got, I, I understand the publishing thing. I've worked through all the nuts and bolts. You know what? I'm going to create 10 little books with all these little essays, and I'll just put
Mm,
them out there. And, in my organization, we'll give them away if people do certain things and stuff like that. So, um, I think there's a lot of people out there and some may be listening, who don't have a book. Stop and look at all the things you've done, all
mm.
the emails you might have written, may have written advice emails, LinkedIn posts. You start gathering those things and putting them together and maybe expanding on this post. Here's a little thought. I get a story that goes with this thought. You could have a book in a hurry.
Oh, yeah.
You really could. People, oh, I don't know. I haven't, trust me, you've written a ton. So anyhow, yeah, I have written a lot. Um, the first networking book I wrote a novel in the 80s, and I wrote a second novel in the 2000s. But my first book that I wrote was called Foundational Networking, and really what it talks about is just how to build relationships.
Mm,
And that's really what it's all about.
okay.
People do business with us because they know us, like us, and trust us. That's why they help us, introduce us to people. And so, yeah, foundational networking I guess sadly, it's probably one of my most popular books. It's first, you figure, okay, that's going to be the worst. No, it's
Right.
probably been the best. But it really kind of speaks to the heart of really what networking is about and what it's not. So thank you.
That's good. That will give people a lot of clarity. So I will be sure to put that in the show notes. And then, of
Thank you.
course, people should just go to your Amazon author page and see all the other stuff that you've written.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I agree with you 100%. We are all sitting on a gold mine of content. You just need to reorganize it and get it into the books. And that's great. It's great.
Well, what I tell people is having a book will change your life. Not in ways, not saying it's going to make you $1 million or anything like that, unless your name's Hillary Clinton, if they say ain't going to happen. But that's okay. But, it opens doors that you didn't know were there.
Yes.
In my first novel, I novelized my experience playing small college football. I had a lot of fun writing it. I intended it for the guys I played with, right? Dozen or so guys. I was shocked as to how it sold. I mean, I had somebody order 40 copies of it. It was for a senior class, someone, a high school senior class. I had dads reaching out to me just saying, it just spoke to them. One kid ended up going to where I went to college because his dad bought the book and just, So it's just, I tell people you owe it to the world to write a book. You owe it to the world to share what you have because you're not going to sell 1 million copies. Well, maybe you will. Hopefully you do. That would be great. I don't want to steal anybody's dreams, or take that away from anybody. But if you sell one copy to the right person, you change their life. You've done something. And I say that everyone should have a book, knowing that most people won't. And that's okay. But if you're just teetering on the edge of, I'm going to do it this year, do it.
Do it.
I'm telling you, do it.
Do it. And I'm exactly the same. I think everybody's got a book in them because we all have life lessons to share. We all have something that we want to put out in the world. And it's an amazing thing. So I agree with you 100%. So we have reached the end of our time together. This has been a fabulous conversation. I have learned a lot. I encourage everybody to follow you. Maybe they can connect with you if they send you a nice note or whatever.
Sure. No,
and check out your podcast. So by the way, what's the name of your podcast?
It's called Networking RX, like the prescription symbol. Yeah.
Perfect. So we'll put that in the show notes as well, so people can click on that and go over to that and your Amazon book link and everything else. So thank you so much, Frank, for being here today and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you.
And to everyone listening, bye-bye, and we'll talk with you next week. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Easy Peasy Books, From Author to Authority. If you found value in today's episode, I'd be grateful if you could leave us a review. It helps other aspiring authors discover our podcast. To learn more about writing, publishing, and leveraging your business book, visit my website at easypeasybooks.com.